The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Okay. I think we have him on the phone. Blau, do we?
Yep.
Beauty. I wasn't sure. You're still playing the music, which made me think you were just like in a trance. Lance Lambert, BovedaHinc.com. My man knows everything there is to know about the legalization of cannabis and the laws behind cannabis and the strains and how to use it and all this kind of stuff. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing, Todd?
Well, I'm good, man. You know, our Raps beat your Golden State Warriors. What's up?
Oh, my gosh. Congratulations. Belated, I know, but that was a huge win for you guys.
Yeah, pretty awesome stuff. Really pretty awesome stuff.
That was very cool. And it was tight. It was a good game. It was a good game, you know? I mean, the whole series, honestly, it was really good, but I was impressed by that for sure.
Yeah, it was super cool. And what's going on your end? Whereabouts are you this week?
Man, I am actually at our headquarters just outside, I should say, of Minneapolis, Minnesota, in a town called Minnetonka. And definitely good weather out here, so can't beat that. But getting to catch up with the team at headquarters and see what's happening for next quarter.
Is that what you do? You guys do big planning? Is that how it works in the big companies? You plan and you plan and you plan?
We do. We pretty much plan everything on a quarterly basis. So, we come in and just look at where we're at, look at where we want to go, and look at those big goals for success in all categories too. Obviously, not just in herbal, but across the board. So it's good time catching up, and for myself, working remote to spend some quality time with the team at headquarters is always a benefit as well.
So here's a question then for you. Where have you guys noticed at BovedaHinc.com, which would be indicative of markets of growing cannabis users, essentially, that has surprised you? Where are markets that you said, my goodness, we didn't expect to sell this many two-way humidity control packs?
That's an excellent question. I'd say domestically, one of the surprising states was Utah, which did pass yes on Prop 2 just last year. But the fact that, again, that's a bit more of a conservative state. It's predominantly known for being the headquarters of the Mormon Latter-day Saints Church. So that's one thing that's been kind of impressive, but as well as Texas, which Texas is traditionally known as a very right-wing Republican state, as we call it, or a red state. And there, of course, is just a nominal program they have there centric around cannabidiol or CBD. So having CBD only still, it is a very popular market. So I think it just shows that where there's a higher population specifically for that state, because they do have Houston being the fourth largest populated state in the country, with the population, there's still high consumption. And no matter, where the state of legalization is.
So often in politics, people don't talk about the things they do, and whether it's believing in, say, gay rights and gay marriage, which are some very, a lot of conservatives who don't believe in that, which blows my mind. Yet you'll find out that they lived a life in the closet for so many years. Do we? And I'm being very serious when I say that. You hear a lot of these different examples and cases. Are you noticing that in some of the right-wing states with sort of their views on cannabis, but you're going, wait a second, the demographics don't state that or don't show in terms of sales numbers that there's got to be much wider use of cannabis here, because it's not just one, or else we wouldn't be selling this much.
100%. So, and the only reason I chuckled a little bit is, I think, Todd, we've discussed this, at one point in my career, I was relocated to beautiful Knoxville, Tennessee, which is considered the Southeast, very conservative. People don't ask, where you're from. They ask what church you're going to give you an idea of the demographics. Having said that, that is where I really sincerely learned that you don't take everything for face value. There were very much vices, I'll just say, that were just as popular, if not more popular, in a conservative state like Tennessee as there are in a state like Nevada. So I think it is interesting, to your point, that you look at the demos, you see people who are traditionally right-wing Republican, they might be pro-gun, but to your point, anti-gay or anti-alternative lifestyle. And that's what's on the surface. But then everything behind closed doors and in closed conversations they're just as much active in things like cannabis consumption as the more liberal states and areas of our country. And I think that's the same to be told around the world, honestly. I know plenty of people in Asia that consume, although, places in Asia where over an ounce and a half of consumption can equate to capital punishment because that is considered trafficking of illegal Schedule 1 narcotic. But then yet there's still people that consume cannabis there. So it is kind of a little contradictory in some markets for sure.
Lance Lambert from BovedaHerbal's. You mentioned Nevada. I just saw that Nevada law prohibits marijuana testing and hiring practices now. What's going on over there?
That is huge. So it's not actually the governor that was there to see adult use come into fruition, but the governor, his successor, Governor Steve Sisolak, he was the one who signed into law this month. The law prohibits employers from using marijuana drug testing as a hiring practice. This is huge. This is something that I actually posted up on LinkedIn, which was a bit more of a B2B, a little bit more on the business side of things. And I had a friend that said, could you imagine if they tested for pharmaceutical usage? And I said, yeah, pharmaceutical, alcohol, even more specifically, painkillers. If we tested for painkillers in this country prior to employment, our population, dare I say, would be in the low double digits. But again, it's a perfect example of how we're trying to normalize and destigmatize the world in this country in specific, one succession at a time. And this passage of AB 132, as it's referenced, that's exactly what this does, because we are contradicting ourselves. We say not only do we have a legal medical program in Nevada, we now have a legal adult use as of, now going on a year and a half ago, and almost 2 years, as of July this year. So now we've had a legal adult use program. How can you still say that you test for cannabis use prior to employment? This is something that's 100% legal, just like consumption of alcohol. So again, props to Nevada for being forward thinking and really being a part of the movement.
And with that being said, it's not saying, hey, go get baked and show up to work, though, right?
100%. It's still one of those things where, it's just using common sense. And that's where it does come into conversation. But it's the same thing. You've been in management, I've been in management, where, you're just cognizant. If you see someone that looks inebriated, and now we aren't delineating between alcohol or cannabis, but if you see someone who looks like they might be high or intoxicated, of course, that's an issue that you have to address and go by way of human resource. But that is something that, again, comes with education. And it's interesting, some of the support on that movement. You actually had a Las Vegas attorney who is a former federal law clerk, Lena if I could say her last name right, Hamanesian, and she said, this is consistent with recreational use and would make sense for them to follow suit, them being obviously the employers of Nevada. So I'm happy to hear it, and hopefully we see again more of this movement in other legal states throughout the country.
Cincinnati City Council decriminalizes cannabis. Talk about normalization. We're seeing it more and more and more in cities across America. Did that one surprise you?
That one a little bit. Cincinnati, specifically Ohio, we look at that as a bit more of a purple state in recent years. So it's not just red, it's not just blue. You have a little bit of the liberal and on both sides. And so Cincinnati City Council did decriminalize marijuana possession up to 100 grams. I think that's very reasonable. It's something that any consumer, rather it be, for a medicinal reason or more so for a recreational reason, but still definitely plenty of cannabis to be able to legally possess. So, yeah, definitely a bit of a surprise for being Cincinnati, but very happy to hear. That's something that for them to be able to consume and hold. And it's been kind of a battle getting things moved forward in Ohio. Likewise with Michigan. Michigan has been a huge success for us. That's been a long time coming to get that state moving forward as well. So, again, we're glad to see stuff happening, not just in the South, but in the Midwest as well.
Where are we at with New York? Because I heard that they were starting to get back on this sort of train.
New York has not given up yet. So for those out in New York, Cuomo is trying to get something passed here by spring. They've had a lot of conversation around decriminalization, but his point is that you can't talk about decriminalization without addressing this topic of full legalization. It is one of those where New York is the second highest populous state, only to California. And technically, by percentage of per capita, they do have the highest amount of consumers of cannabis. So they do need to move things forward. I really see it as what I call a keystone state in the Northeast. I mean, we were very happy to see that Massachusetts is moving forward, as well as Vermont and some of the other northeastern states. But we all know that just like California on the West Coast, New York is very relevant in the movement of things like this on the East Coast. So crossing our fingers for spring. If not, it may not happen until early next year, unfortunately.
This was an amazing little talking point that you sent me that I guess surprised me. I don't know why it surprised me, maybe just because I didn't put much thought into it. But Nigeria surpasses Iceland as a country with the highest percentage of cannabis consumers.
Yes, exactly. So I like doing little trivias with my teams here at headquarters. And I posted that up and I said, can anyone tell me the highest percentage of overall populous consumers in a country? And I listed off, is it Iceland? Is it Nigeria? Is it Canada? Is it the U.S.? And quite a few people did guess Canada because of the fact that it is the first G7 first world country to legalize cannabis from an adult use standpoint, which was a pretty good guess. And then many did, of course, guess the U.S. because we do have technically 39 states that have some level of cannabis legalized. But traditionally, it's been Iceland. Really, you look at UNODC, which is United Nations drug division that actually does an audit of countries' consumption of all kinds of things above and beyond cannabis. But traditionally, it's been Iceland. By per capita, they've been the highest percentage, up in the high teens. I believe 19.3, 19.4, the last I checked. But yeah, according to a latest study from New Frontier Data, which is one of the data resources within the cannabis industry, they said Nigeria comes in with over 20 million, 20.8 million people that consume cannabis every year. And I gave a market estimate of 15.3 billion in
Wow.
2 new reports, which is pretty impressive as well. Yeah, so I was even surprised. But there's a big movement going on in Africa. You know, it's a continent that a lot of people don't know much about. I mean, there's 54 countries there. Out of the 54 countries, you actually have 4 countries that are dabbling heavily in cannabis. You have production going on in Kenya and Zimbabwe. You have, I would say, the one country that's got the biggest movement is South Africa. They've had half a dozen shows just in Cape Town and Johannesburg alone in the last several months. So they're really leading the pack. In,
No one talks about Africa and their cannabis use. I never hear it in any conversation.
No. I mean, short of a Toto song, I don't think a lot of people bring up Africa in general, you know? So it is one of those things where it's kind of forgotten. But again, it's another place where this all began. I mean, when you hear about the strain Durban poison, that is in reference to Durban, South Africa. So it is one of those places where a very, very popular landrace strain, as we call them, came out of. So Africa has actually been producing cannabis for as long as other parts of Europe, almost as long as China in Asia. So it's still very relevant, but again, yeah, it just doesn't come up much in topic. I ran into a few gentlemen when I was up there on my last trip visiting you that were from Durban, and they were talking about how they're expanding their distribution in the cannabis industry. So it's another area of the world to keep an eye on for certain.
Oh, that's really interesting. Are there sort of like companies? I know some publicly traded companies here about like Chiron Bioceuticals, or whatever they're called. They're out of Colombia. Or do we see some? Are we seeing some African countries talked about where people are investing in and stuff? I don't think I've come across any.
No, not quite yet. So you do have, and don't act surprised, we've discussed this. You know, I've run into Canada on every continent. So there is some Canadian companies that are looking into projects in Africa. They aren't quite as established, to your point, as some of the operations they have going on in Colombia, in Chile, in Mexico, or in mainland Europe. But still, you are seeing some of the investors, because let's face it, energy goes where the money flows. And once legalization comes about, the money starts flowing. These investors want to get behind it and make sure that they're betting on the right horse, so to speak. So I think we're going to hear a bit more, you and I both, on some of these large investment groups out of Canada looking at the southern end of Africa in the near future.
Oh, interesting. Lance Lambert from BovedaHinc.com. Always incredible chats here. And here we go now. Talk about another foreign country. I won't try my accent. If I had a few pops, I might. Scotland gets the green light for the first ever cannabis farm. What's going on in Scotland?
Yeah, it's Scotland, right? So it's very impressive. This is one thing that did.
Is that your heritage? Are you part Scot? Are you from? Are you?
I'm English.
English.
I'm 100% English. As much as I'm a huge fan of both the Scots and the Irish, specifically the Irish, they are so friendly, so sincere. When I go back to the UK, I always try to make a point to go over to Ireland, but actually I'm of English descent. But that's what I was going to say. I was surprised because England, GW Pharmaceuticals, we talked about them before, actually supplied 70% of all exported medical-grade cannabis just in 2016 alone. And they're the only pharmaceutical company that actually has an FDA-approved drug in the U.S. that uses biomass or all-plant cannabinoids. Everyone else is using synthetic cannabinoids and the 5 or 6 other medicines that are out here. But anyway, England legalized just weeks after you guys did. So again, that's where I feel that anyone that was tied, to being a Commonwealth country, to being a part of that big movement of the British Empire so many years ago, all of a sudden that made an impact because we did not think the Parliament was going to do anything with legalization anytime soon. All of a sudden Canada comes on. We all remember October 17th of last year. Sure enough, November 1st, England says, okay, we're going to announce a program ourselves, a medical program. So as you know, UK encompasses Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland, not the Republic of Ireland, but Northern Ireland. So all of them are kind of on the same page. The Republic of Ireland, I did meet a young lady from there. There's about 20 or 30 individuals that have their own movement going on out of Dublin and trying to work closely with them to see where they're at with legalization. So I think they'll come around as well. But I thought I just was really taken aback by that because they're a bit more conservative on that side of the pond. You guys know, we know how they roll. Anything to do with the Queen is a bit more on the conservative side. And with that, even the bank, that's even England itself, even the British, they're talking about specifically investing in the industry. There's another story I'll have to send your way on that. But a lot of stuff happening across Europe, and that's just another good example of it.
Dude, this is crazy. Every time I talk to you, it just... because I always get nostalgic, and again, it's nothing new that I'm telling you, Lance Lambert, but I get nostalgic and thinking how difficult it was to even have a conversation about cannabis. You didn't even bring that up out loud, and then if God forbid you ever went and bought it, it really was in the sketchiest back alleys, and I'm talking about in the 80s, right, 90s, and here we are. We're talking about different countries, we're talking about Africa, we're talking about, 10, 15 years from now, there's no question in my mind that you're not going to see this basically legal in every country on the planet. There's no question in my mind.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think very much so. Both of us have a couple of young boys, and I think by the time they are of legal age to consume, this is going to be a normalized industry. Prohibition is going to be over, and people like Nixon and Daryl Gates from the DARE program, and even to a certain extent Nancy Reagan, rest her soul. I think all these individuals, people are going to be like, what were they thinking? Why were they making this public enemy number one? This is a natural plant. It's not synthetic. It's not bad for you. Obviously, there's better ways to consume it, and we can get into that later. But again, this is something that I'm with you. When I see the Church of England is going to take their $10.5 billion fund and will invest in cannabis, would you, even if I told you that 5 years ago, would you think this was April 1st? You think I was playing a joke on you? So I'm still taken back, and you can hear the excitement in my voice because we are a part of an evolution, and you and I just as much as anyone else, Todd. We're both. I'd say. It's safe to say both of us are advocates that we very much support the legalization. And to be a part of this movement and to be a part of all this news, it's just every day is something new, to your point. And every day I'm further impressed with it.
Well, I'm always impressed with all the contributions that you have to the program and everything that Boveda Inc. and BovedaHinc.com, hashtag Boveda Cannabis is doing, or hashtag BovedaHerbal as well. Lance Lambert can be followed at, what's your Twitter handle again, Lance?
805 Lance.
805 Lance.
Find me on Insta or Twitter. Yeah, I just pretty much keep it to news, not too much fun and fluff. It's just kind of some of these these updates, and I try to get them out at least once a day or every other day. But definitely do feel free to follow. Always love the fans.
Awesome, man. Enjoy the team meeting with the entire Boveda crew in Minneapolis and the big planning for the next quarter. And we look forward to hearing what some of those results and predictions are on next week's program.
Excellent. Likewise. Thanks so much, Todd. I very much appreciate it.
Of course, as always, Lance Lambert, thank you so much for the chat.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.